Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good day. Welcome back to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Happy to welcome back somebody you might recognize. Maybe you haven't. You have to check out his previous stuff with us. But Paolo Cascio, Paolo, how's it going today? Welcome back.
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be doing this, and it's always fun to jump in with you guys and show off some cool stuff and talk about gear and
Definitely. It's
making
always
pretty
a
pictures.
It's always a pleasure to have you back. Obviously, we loved you last time and you did a great job. So,
Oh,
you
thank
got
you.
the invite back. I'm surprised they keep inviting me back, but I guess they've hired me, so they have no choice. Do want to give a huge thanks to the sponsors of this event over at Manfrotto. So thank you very much to them for sponsoring this. For those of you joining us at home as well, thank you for joining us. If you don't know, Paolo's going to be talking about the new Move from Manfrotto. So if you have any questions about that and you want to ask them, you want to find anything out about it, he's got it right there in his hand. He's going to demo it to us. But if you're joining us here on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab. Otherwise, if you're joining us on Vimeo or Facebook, you can use the comment section and we'll make sure to facilitate those questions over to Paolo. But otherwise, I'm going to step out of the way and hand it over to Paolo and say thanks again for being here. And I'll see you back in a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. And thanks to everyone at B&H. I'm really excited to be sharing this great piece of equipment today. And the guys at Videndum, Manfrotto, you probably know the brand. They've made tons and tons of great stuff. I'm very excited to be working with them as an influencer and get a chance to share with you a very, very cool new product called the Move, which is in my hand right here. And this is going to really change the way that you shoot. And we're going to go into the details about that, talk a little bit about how it works, how it transports from one system to the next as far as support gear, and also a little bit about just kind of how I use this piece of equipment and how I would suggest you guys use it or might want to consider using it. I want to give a big shout out to Dan Begas and to Will Holoka, who have been great supporters of mine and supported me with all this great equipment. There's a piece of equipment that I have here that I'm using that you guys can't see right now. And it's a tether table, which is literally the coolest tether table I've ever used. It's actually what my laptop is sitting on right now that we're streaming with. Check that out when you get a chance. There's a lot of really cool stuff. We have behind me, this is actually my kitchen at home. I know you guys were joking earlier that, wow, this looks like a great set. So we're going to talk a little bit about the slider here, which is the Carpet Slider Pro, and how we're going to use this in conjunction with the FastLegs, which are in the background there. See if I can get a little bit more light on myself over here. We're going to be switching back and forth between cameras, so when I'm actually jumping over to each position, you guys are going to actually get a chance to see that. We've been kind of holding off and charging the battery up until the last minute to do that, but we'll show you that a little bit later. So what is the Move? And for anybody that's ever had to screw in a fluid head to the bottom of a tripod, it's always this, you got to get underneath the tripod, you got to fish around, you got to try to find the tie down. When you finally get it in there, you got to flip it a bunch of times. It's time consuming. It's frustrating when you're working at night or in a dark stage. It's not a fun time. And so this is going to revolutionize the way you move your camera head from your tripod to a slider or to another system that you're working with. And it's a very, very simple system. At the bottom of this is a 3/16 thread, which is what most heads have on the bottom of them, fluid heads. It does have a 1/4-inch adapter that comes with it. So if for some reason you have a 1/4-inch thread, you could put the adapter in there. And on the top, we have our traditional 3/16 tie down, the thread, the bolt that goes into the bottom of your camera. This is a 1/4-20, and it actually has a 3/16 adapter, which just kind of screws in there. It's a little adapter. Okay, pretty standard stuff, right? I mean, this is about 1.5 inches in height, so it's not something that's going to make your nodal point or your lens height go extremely high. There's some adapters that I've used in the past that raise the camera up so high that it becomes top heavy and it's very difficult to operate and control a shot. So the way this works is, you can see on on the front here, it says lock and unlock, okay? There's this nice knurled knob that's on here that's very easy to grab. And when you twist that, this thing will pop up like so. And this is what screws into the bottom of your head. Okay, so it's two pieces. This screws into the bottom of the head. This screws onto your tripod. And I do have some pictures here that I took earlier. All right, great. So this is a close-up view of what the Manfrotto MOVE looks like mounted to the slider, which I'm going to show you that up close. So you can see it's just raises the head up just about 1.5 inches. Not a lot of space there. It's very, very small. It's very, very simple to use. And so I'm going to show you right now what that looks like mounting it on the bottom of the Carpet Pro slider. So if I take this off, the Carpet Pro slider has this plate, which is really, really nice. Okay, there's two little sort of finger inserts here that you can grab this and pull it out. There's a release, quick release knob that's on the top of the slider. And underneath here, you can see this is 3/8. So there's a 3/8 threaded tie down here, and it also comes with a 1/4 inch if you have a 1/4 inch mounting head. So this just pretty much goes into here like this, and it just hand tightens. And then this just clicks in to place, and we lock it. Now the MOVE, this bottom part, or the top part I should say, this is what's mounted to the bottom of your head. So all that you have to do when you go to mount your head is you just snap this into place, and that's it. It's super simple. So once again, this is a way for you, if you're shooting with one camera, to leapfrog from one setup to the next without a lot of trouble with unscrewing the head and mounting the different things. I have my FastLegs, which I'll show you a little bit later when we get to that shot. I have a ball leveler on there, which is great. And so for me to take the ball leveler and to take the head off, I have to unwind the head from the ball lever. I have to take that off. I have to bring it over here. I have to mount it onto this thing. It's really, really time consuming. This is going to save you a lot of time, which is great. It's super, super efficient. We've been using things similar to this in the movie industry for a long time. And those of you that want to take the time to check out my IMDb, I've had over, 100 credits or so, working in Hollywood on feature films, episodic television, commercials. It's all about how efficient can we work? What kind of equipment can we use to make our jobs easier? Because we have long days ahead of us. It's a minimum 12-hour day when you're working on a movie or television show. But when you're working with a smaller crew, like say you're doing a documentary or you're doing a corporate video, if you're maybe you're a wedding photographer and the people that you're working for want some B-roll, some video, this is a great chance for your second shooter to get some beauty shots and to be able to hop quickly on and off a tripod and go to a slider and to move around really efficiently to grab those shots. You don't have a lot of time when you're doing that kind of work. Same thing with documentaries. A lot of times you have to grab somebody for an interview really quickly. You've got a CEO or a corporate executive, or you have, I do a lot of work with veterans. I've worked with the Pearl Harbor survivors that were on the USS Arizona. Those guys don't have hours and hours and hours to give you. Their energy is obviously, these guys are 100 years old at this point. So when you have to be ready to go when somebody's ready to go. You can't be sitting around and be diddling around with your equipment. So without further ado, I am going to show you how I would, I've kind of come up with a little shoot here, if you will. I always try to have some type of a game plan whenever I'm going to teach a webinar that I can show you, like, this is what I would do if I was actually shooting. So like I said, this is my real life kitchen. I live here in my house. My wife was kind enough to, let me have half the house to work with today. So you guys have a beautiful location to look at and not like a studio space where there's a black curtain behind me or a white cyc. And it's just like you're trying to get your headspace around, like, well, what would this actually look like on location, right? It's easy to see a piece of equipment, how it works, but I want to show you the functionality of this piece of equipment. So in the background here, I have a Nespresso machine. And so what I'm going to do is, if I were actually shooting a spot for an espresso, if I was going to shoot something for them, I would want to shoot a detail shot. And by a detail shot, I mean a big close-up that shows the details, and you can, like, you see the texture of things. You know, those are very, very important shots to get. Wide shots are not engaging. Wide shots are there, or establishing shots, to show you where we're at. So right now, this would be an establishing shot. We see that we're in a kitchen, right? So now we're going to go into a tighter shot, which now draws the audience in and engages them to go, okay, we're looking at something different now. What it is that we're supposed to be focusing our attention on. So I'm going to jump over to, and a big shout out to Aaron McNally over Canon for giving me this C70 to use today. It's a brilliant camera. It's 4K. It's what I shoot with. So I'm going to put the battery in that. We're going to switch the camera over so that you can actually see the shot and what I'm going to be doing here. So my assistant Lance is going to help me out here, and we are going to be setting this up here in just a second. We're going to put the power on. Actually, let me stay in this wide shot for a second. Okay, give me 1 second here. We're just going to power the camera up. TV's on? Okay, so we should be able to tap you into the other camera now. Advanced, share second camera, and switch. Okay, there we go. So you guys can all see that. That is actually a shot from inside this video tent that we have next here. So you can see that I have all the settings on my camera, which I like to have set up there. So for those of you that are like, what ISO are you working at? What's your f-stop and all? You guys can clearly see that information on there. Okay, so I have this Nespresso machine here. And if I were going to sort of set up a shot here of this and get a detail shot, I probably want to zoom in here, get a nice focus first of all, and just kind of find a shot. Now, one of the things that I like to do, and this is just my personal taste, I like to break the angles. So on my tripod here, and Lance, maybe you can switch back to the other shot, the wide shot, for a second. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm a little farther away, but these fast legs are great because I can adjust the height of my camera really, really quickly without loosening one leg at a time and going up and going down. It's kind of time consuming to do that. This is really, really quick to be able to do that when you're working by yourself. And I love these legs for that reason. So this has a ball head leveler on it. If you want to switch back to the other camera now, Lance. Awesome. Okay, so I like to do stuff like this. I just find it more interesting, you know, and I kind of like to break the angles a little bit. ISO it's a little darker than when I started setting up here. So I'm going to go bump my ISO up a little bit here. Let's go to 400. That looks pretty good. Okay, so if I were going to do a shot here and, you know, find something interesting to do, like kind of tip down here to the espresso if we were actually going to make it, right? So this is just not a big deal. It's just a nice little tilt. Okay, I'm zoomed in all the way right here. If I wanted to get tighter, I just walk in a little bit, right? I do stuff like this all the time. I'd be on the espresso mug. We kind of follow it around to the Nespresso. And then let's go ahead and actually make one here. So I'm going to pop this in. And we're going to push the button on the top. It may take a while here. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start making an espresso here. So if I started here, came off the espresso up to the label, right? There's our hero shot. We see it's an espresso. We tip down nicely. We have our espresso being made there, right? Like I said, I like to break the angles. I think this is a really dynamic shot. It's a little bit more interesting if I shot this, you know, with a level head, which I can show you right now. It's just, you know, it's just a lot of square stuff. So, but if I tilt the angle like this, and this is what you can do with this head, this Nitro head has a ball leveler on it, right? And then maybe I would do a wide shot here, you know, to show, you know, I'd probably go level for a shot like this. And then, you know, I would do something like that. So Lance, let's go ahead and switch back to the wide shot. Now, you guys won't be able to see this in great detail, but let me show you what this looks like. That quick, I can take this whole head and the camera off. There's the bottom of the Move, right? So I'm gonna walk over to here and I'm gonna drop that in. That's it, I'm there. That's how quick it works. Like, how cool is that, right? So let me give an example of how this works efficiently. So I knew I was going to be in that shot over there, right? That was going to be my first shot. I'm in close, I'm tight, I get that shot. I already have the slider pre-built for my second shot, which is basically going to be a product shot, okay? So if I switch back over to the camera, all right, my camera just landed here, so I'm in a wide shot. So Lance, let's go ahead and pull the tripod out there if you would for me, please. Okay, this is 105 millimeters right now. So I would probably, if I was doing a real shoot here, right? If somebody was there making the espresso, right? I could jump on the slider here, and this could be a nice little gentle move over as that espresso was being made, right? I could do a variation of different sizes. If I had a 70 to 200 on here, it'll be ideal. But we can see that we're in a kitchen, and the tighter you go, obviously you see that there's more movement here. It's just the nature of tighter shots, right? Narrow the field of view, and you see more movement. So let's say that we got that shot, right? I'm gonna go really wide here, and now what I'm gonna do is I've got my sort of my hero shot, my close-up out of the way. So now let's say that the product shot is the client wants to see the beauty shot. So I'm going to take my espresso machine and I'm going to bring that over to the foreground. And set this up about like so. Try to get the cord out of the way so we don't see it back here. And we're just going to do a little art direction here. So first of all, let's frame up so we see what's going on and get some focus on this thing. Okay, there we go. So this is a pretty wide shot here. This is, because I'm on a C70, my lens is now a little bit wider. So I have a little tube over here that I'm using for a highlight, and we're just going to kind of look at this move right now just to make sure that things are kind of where we'd like them to be. All right, if we were going to do a product shot here. So I kind of like to set the slider right in the middle and kind of line up where I think I want to be, to give myself the ability to slide either to the left or to the right. Now this is centered up exactly right now in the middle of the slider. And if you want to go to the wide shot, second, Lance. There we go. So I'm just lining this up right now, and that's looking pretty good to me. I'm kind of trying to center it up with the stove. All right, and then once I get this in here, and you can go back to the other camera, just kind of do a little, set something up here and make this look, you know, kind of interesting. Put some stuff in the foreground, and maybe we'll put the espresso cup underneath. And because we're talking about Nespresso and the different cups that it has, maybe we'll do something interesting and put those here and here to see what that looks like. Just give it a little depth and dimension just to show what this might look like, right? And I kind of try to find some nice light on there. So that's looking pretty good. So I get back to my slider, right? And I can do a series of different kind of shots on the slider, right? I can come up to an espresso. You know, whatever you want to do. I mean, this is a great tool to use when you're, it gives you the option. Like if you're on a tripod, you can't do this stuff. You're constantly like, I got to move to the left, I got to move to the right. Sliders add really great dynamic move to things. And if I was going to go in super tight, say like just on the espresso itself, you could do interesting things like come off the flowers, like maybe it's, it's the morning, it's a beautiful day, you got your flowers going, start your day well with your espresso. I'm just making this stuff up, right? I'm just sort of spitballing. Like when you do a commercial, there's an agency that has a list of shots that they want to do. And, you do stuff like this. So I had my wife go out, thank you to Michelle. She went out and got those beautiful flowers in the background there. And so I'm just kind of looking for, an interesting frame. I'm constantly adjusting things. This is actually turned into a product photography shoot instead of the move. But I want to show you guys how cool this is and how you can use this, right? It's just like find your beauty shot. I actually have a polarizer on here, right? You can see what that's doing right now to control my reflections. I always use a polarizer almost on every shot. It's like we kind of dial in our lighting, 90% of the way as much as we can. And then I kind of fine tune with this and just determine how much sort of shine do I want to have on there. So to me, I'd like to ideally be a little bit lower, but this is a really pretty shot right here. It shows our kitchen, shows the machine, right? And then you'd lock the camera off and end of the commercial. So that is a little sort of hands-on of how quickly and efficiently the Move system works. One of the things I wanted to point out about this is that I have this on two Manfrotto light stands right now. They're lightweight stands. The Carpet Slider Pro will actually mount onto the tabletop. So I can put this wherever I want. And it also has I think it's a 2-foot extension that these pop out at the end. And you put a 2-foot extension on here, you can get this really long if you wanted to. So a slider is a great tool. It adds dynamic movement. Typically on a film set, on a movie or a television show or a commercial, we would have a big full-size dolly that the camera operator would be riding on. And so that's how we move the camera around. But in addition to the camera operator being on a dolly, camera operators use sliders as well. Like I can't think of a show that I've ever been working on that didn't have a slider on it too, because here's the thing, like the human element, actors don't always hit their marks. Products do. You put it down, it doesn't move. That's what's great about product photography or commercials. But actors, they get kind of caught up in the moment. They're doing their thing. If they miss their mark by a foot and you have nowhere to go, the camera operator can sort of save that shot and finesse it and move it over a little bit. Where this is really great to have as an independent filmmaker is you don't always have the luxury or the budget to have a dolly, okay? This is absolutely the next best thing is to have one of these. Not only do they move horizontally, but I've used them to push in on products. There's a commercial on my website for Kellogg's that I did where I did a little tracking shot on a slider along it was Kellogg's cornflakes that they were making. We did a little product shot just kind of dollying along a tabletop just like I showed you there. So this is a really terrific tool. One of the things that I think is really important is knowing when to move the camera. So when you have a slider, it's a funny thing. Like whenever we get a new piece of equipment as photographers or as filmmakers, we always want to use it, right? Like, oh, I got to use this thing because I have it. You get excited and you want to use it, and becomes to the point where you're almost overusing it. So when you're using a tool like this, you really have to be mindful of like, what is this shot about? Like, how can I use this slider to enhance what's happening in the storyline? Is somebody having a moment, emotional moment, where we're pushing in, the audience wants to feel that tension or that stress or that excitement? That's when you want to push in, right? Or to slide over and to reveal something. A lot of times, you'll see that on a TV show. So these are really, really great tools to use. And the one thing I love about Manfrotto's gear is this stuff is bomb-proof. I mean, it's really, really durable. I've been using Manfrotto for years. And this slider, comes in this beautiful case, right? A lot of times when you buy a piece of equipment, like comes in a cardboard box, and now how do I get this to the set? Do I get it to, to where I'm shooting? And this comes with this. And so I really, really love this product. I'm really excited about it. And now that this Move system is out, it enables me to move much, much faster. I just finished shooting a story about a retired police officer that was shot in the line of duty. It's on my website and under the commercial video section. And we had two cameras going the whole time, but what we found out was that we found that the story was revealing itself better with the other camera. And so I had a slider that I was kind of moving around with, and this is a great testimony of myself that I just got carried away, that I had a new tool and I wanted to use it. I found it to be distracting to me. And when you look at your footage, when you're shooting video and you start to get it into your editing software, I use DaVinci Resolve. It's amazing software. If you haven't checked that out, I would strongly encourage you to look at DaVinci Resolve, and it comes with great tutorials. I was looking at both of those cameras, and we're looking at what we call dailies, which is our footage that we shot. And I was just kind of fishing around, like this officer was shot. She had a big scar on her arm. The more I started looking at that footage, the more I felt like I'm getting a little too busy with the camera. Okay. What I just showed you was super cool for product photography, but when you're using this in a narrative way, sometimes a move can be distracting to the audience. Or sometimes it needs a move and you don't have that move. And so these are great tools, but you have to think about, how am I going to use this tool creatively? And I just showed you how you could hopscotch from a tripod to a slider. Let's say for instance, something crazy happened, right? And this was an actual shoot. And we went to hit the playback button and we realized, or maybe this technology that we work with, digital, things happen all the time. There's mistakes that are made. It's not always human error. Sometimes it's technology that lets us down. If I had lost that first shot, right, and I had to go back and reshoot what I just did, I could pop this thing off in a second, right, and go shoot that shot again. It wouldn't be a big deal. I just set the tripod over there, and I would just pop this in, and we're good. We're off to the races. So I know I kind of went over.
I wanted to jump in, and I wanted to ask you something about that, because I know that you mentioned that you were using the Nitrotech 612, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah.
So I know with pro video tripods, you're typically looking at, you've got a bowl adapter, which is either 80 millimeters or 100 millimeters, and you need an adapter for that typically. But with the Move, it looks like, maybe I'm wrong, it looks like you almost don't need that. Or is it just a special adapter that works within it that allows it to pop on and off?
It is absolutely something you would want to use. And all this does is it just allows me to change the angle of my shot, or to level the camera really quickly. Okay, the fast legs, all they do is they allow you to just go like up and down really quickly, and then like set it, and then click, 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 and you're off to the races. So the Move, now that we're showing this much closer, that's it. I'm done. It's mounted. I'm ready to go. Camera's a little high. So bring this back down so you guys can see that a little better. So if I had a regular traditional tripod, I would have been unscrewing legs. I would have been extending them one at a time. It would have taken me 4 times as long or 3 times as long because I have 3 legs to adjust, as opposed to this where I can just click, 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 and I'm off to the races. Now, this is what I showed you earlier, how I like to shoot on a little bit of an angle and how you can level the head. If I were to take this off, Scott, without the move, this is what I'd be doing.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Right? I'm going pretty fast here too. Right?
Yeah,
there's the tie down. That's the bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you can see how, my gosh, you know, this is the tie down, and this is the thread that goes on there. So, do you want to do that, or do you want to, you know, here I go. I'm like trying to find it and line it up, right? Getting my steps in. Okay, now it's tied down. Or you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would think that that's, you know, a no-brainer. But
yeah,
but then again, you know, there are some people who are old school and traditionalists, so to speak,
right,
who, you know, might disagree with us. I did notice also, you know, just perusing through the B&H website, that they do also have, you know, I know that you're loosening that base adapter, but I did notice they do also have a Move quick release gim boom that's got a 15-degree angle. Have you had an opportunity to test that out at all? Or
I have not, but you know, certainly I'm always, you know, when I was a camera assistant in Chicago a million years ago, I was fascinated with like every little gadget that came out. I was like at the Sharper Image every weekend looking at stuff. And one of my good friends, Bob Long, who was a camera assistant too, he nicknamed me Gadge, and so that stuck with me for a really long time. Like I love tools, right? We used to call them toys, but they're tools. I mean, you know, we call them toys because we're having such a great time when we get a new piece of equipment and we want to use them. This is bugging me that there's too much headroom. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about the Nitro head, right? I know we didn't really focus too much on that, but this is a really, really fantastic head. And what I love about this is it does have a quick release plate on it, which is, you know, sort of, you know, it just kind of clicks in like a lot of the other Manfrotto plates that you may be familiar with. I'm watching myself on the screen and trying to multitask here. So that clicks in, and that takes the camera off really quickly, but the head is still there, right? So what Manfrotto's done here is they've allowed us to take this a step further. Like we've got the quick release plate up on the top to take the camera off quickly, but then now what do we do with this head? We got to, you know, get underneath there and mess around with that. If you are a photographer watching this webinar and you're considering learning how to shoot video, this is a great head. I mean, this is not an inexpensive head by any means, but you will absolutely get what you pay for. You can buy more inexpensive heads. You want to make sure that you talk to the guys at B&H or wherever you're shopping and let them know what you're doing with your equipment. What kind of camera do you have? What kind of lenses, right? I've shot stuff with like 600 millimeter lenses at the Long Beach Grand Prix every year. And if you don't have enough viscosity, okay, or friction or fluid in your head, you're gonna have this going on, and you're having very, very shaky footage. And so the Nitrotech head is really, really nice that it enables you to adjust your tension. It allows you to adjust counterbalance. So in other words, how much will the camera stay down when you have it in a tilted position, or does it bounce right back up? If this was a really heavy lens, this is gonna want to go over the top, right? But if I have counterbalance in here, which is great that this head has this, it's gonna have it hold it up for me, so I'm not fighting that head. So that's one of the nice things about the Nitrotech. It does have a pan drag on it. Okay, so just for those people that aren't familiar with film terms, Horizontal movement is called panning. Up and down is called tilting. Okay. I've heard people say things like, can you pan down? I was like, wait, what? You want me to pan down? So this is panning. This is tilting, right? You tilt down or you tilt up. You pan left or you pan right. This has really, really nice directions on here. So if you want to adjust your drag, it tells you which direction to go, which is nice if you're a new user to fluid heads. Same thing over here on the side. The tilt has dampening on it, or you can put a lot of friction on it, which will make it a lot smoother. The general rule of thumb is when you're using a fluid head, the longer the lens, the more tension that you want on it, because it's a tighter frame. It's a narrower field of view. So if you have a bouncy or a jerky or an abrupt move, it will help dampen that out. So think of it like a shock absorber on a car. If you hit a bump, you want that bump to be absorbed by the shock absorber. If you didn't have the shock absorber on there, you hit a bump, right? You get a big jerk, and it would be, painful to be driving around like that on a bumpy road. So that's a little bit about the Nitrotech head. I'm kind of trying to be mindful of time here, Scott, and I know that we're about 40 minutes in. I would love to take some questions from people if we have some, and I'd be happy to go over anything that I've already gone through, or maybe help somebody through a situation of like, this is what I have going on, and this is, looking for some advice or some guidance on how to approach it or what kind of equipment you may want to use.
Definitely.
So
definitely. So I'll just reiterate that as well. We did mention in the beginning. So if you do have any questions that you want to get in for Paolo, it's a great resource and he's got a ton of information. So if you're joining us on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab. If you're on Vimeo or Facebook, you can use the comment section and you can communicate with us via that. Just looking at the website, so it looks like there's two separate pieces. So you've got the actual quick release itself and then the base. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's actually I'll pull. Let's do this. Here's the top to this other one. Okay, great. So the Move itself, there are two pieces. You have the top plate, which is this one right here, and this is what screws into the bottom of your fluid head, your tripod head. Okay, so this goes onto the bottom of the head. This goes onto your tripod, or it goes onto the top of your slider, which in this case, on the slider, we have this quick release plate, which if I wasn't using the Move, this would attach to the bottom of my fluid head. But this doesn't jump off and go onto something else. This is proprietary to the Carpet Slider Pro. Okay, so where the Move is very unique and different is that if you have this on different platforms, as long as you have this on there, you can hop from one thing to the next to the next to the next if you want. If you want to have 10 different setups and you have 10 of these, you just take your head and you just pop it onto the next device. Maybe you have a jib that you want to do a jib shot. Jibs are great for booming up and down, right? You use them a lot for cantilevering over the top of things, like kind of a sweeping move. You see that a lot in food commercials, if you're rising up or lowering down on something like a beer pour, and you start at the top of the beer pour and you lower the camera down like kind of jib. You might want to have one of these on your jib, and then you have one on a slider. You maybe have one on a dolly, maybe you have one on a tripod. And so as long as you have this and you have the other component, it's just a matter of like click and you're done. That's it. It actually tightens itself as it goes down into place. If you watch really closely, you'll see that. Let me see if I can spin this. It's already tightened. I don't have to do anything with it, which is great. I mean, it's sort of a click and you're done. And I'm telling you, this is going to change a lot of things for a lot of people, because the efficiency of this when you're on set, regardless of the type of work you're doing, it's just like one less thing to think about. And, we want to be focusing our time and our energy on the creative process, right? We don't want to be like, how am I going to figure out how to do this? Like that's frustrating. That causes anxiety and stress, and you're not going to do your best work when you're stressed out thinking about like, how am I going to figure something out? Like when you can rely on your equipment and you know it's there and you know how things work, you can stay in the moment of that thought, that creative, like, oh, I got a great idea for something. You know, clients love to hear that stuff. Directors love to hear that stuff too. You know, when you say, oh, I got a great idea. What do you want to do? You know, and, you know, as a cinematographer, you know, my job is to make sure that the director's vision comes to fruition, right? He's relying on me to tell the story that he has in his head, and I have to make sure that that emotion comes out, whether it's through my lighting, whether it's through my camera movement, all those kind of things. You know, when I'm doing a photo shoot, it's no different, right? You want to make sure that, you know, you're working for a client, you get them shots. They don't want to see 15 versions of the same shot. They want to see 15 different potential angles that they might be able to use for their marketing purposes. An editor will love you when you can provide different shots. You might not need every shot that you use. There's a lot of times when, you know, we'll shoot a couple different angles, and based on how the story is going or how the flow of something is going, you may find that one angle works better than another. Like case in point, the video that I just finished called Lindsay Talks on my website, the second camera just wasn't as effective as the main locked off camera. And we found that out after we edited. Did I waste my time? No, I had a secondary shot. If that second shot would have been better than the first shot, I would have used it. If they would have come together collectively, I would have bounced back and forth. There's a great show on Netflix that I always refer people to watch, because I think it's a great example of how you can use multiple camera angles, and it's called Drive to Survive. It's the Formula One TV show, and watching that show, I got actually really excited watching it because I'm a huge Formula One fan. But as I was watching, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly how that's how I shoot. Like when I was watching the angles, my wife even made a comment. She goes, this looks like something you shot, because of the angles that were used and the way the camera was moving. Okay. It's not like I'm trying to copy somebody else's work or somebody's trying to copy mine. We all have certain tendencies of wanting to shoot a certain way or wanting to use a certain piece of equipment, right? Someone has a certain style. As long as that style is sort of a trademark look and it's what people hire you for, then that's a great thing. But if you're constantly just jumping around and doing all kinds of crazy things and it's distracting people from the story, or there's no consistency to your work, it can be challenging, you know, to get hired again if somebody's seeing a bunch of different things and like there's no consistency here. Yeah. So this is a beautiful thing. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited that you guys were open to doing the webinar with this. I think this is going to really, I think these are going to sell like hotcakes once people get their hands on them and see how cool they are.
I agree with you also in the sense of when you're looking at something in a professional setting, in a world of video where I don't have to tell you and you don't have to tell me, things are expensive. Things are so expensive. And that's just sort of the nature of the game. And we're talking about a product that is very low cost, very well made. We're not saying it's a cheap product. It's not a super expensive, but you're looking at $100 for the quick release system set.
Worth the price of admission in a second. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's something that you look at it and it's so simple and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, right? I mean,
why didn't I think of that?
Well, not only that, but it's just like, finally, it's like the FastLegs, like somebody finally figured out a way to get a tripod up and down without taking 40 minutes to do it. I'm using exaggeration, obviously, but that's been a challenging thing from the word go. That has been, every time I pulled this out on a shoot and people go, wow, that was really fast. I'm like, that's where it's called FastLegs. And, whenever I teach my workshops, people are always amazed when they see that tripod, because it's something new and it's different, just like this is new and different, but it's revolutionized the way I can get up and down with the camera really, really quickly. Like when I get that creative thought in my head, like I want to run with it before I forget what I'm going to do and get distracted with something else. Because, let's face it, when you're on a set, there's a million things that demand your time. And a lot of people want to ask you questions. And if you can do things without having to think about them like a whole lot like this, like, oh yeah, you sure, yeah, we could do that, and you're doing this while you're talking, and you're not, hold on a second, let me just get this in, and then I'll answer your question. Yeah, this is great, and so I think once again, get
Yeah.
yourself one of these, you'll thank me.
Yeah. Now I did want to touch on something that is a product. It's not the Move, but it is a product you used, so it is applicable in this sense. The
Hmm.
slider.
Yes.
So we've got the slider behind us now. Take me through sort of the logic and the mindset of how you go about choosing what kind of slider you're going to use. There's the traditional, non-powered, non-motorized slider. There's the motorized slider. Nowadays you have handheld gimbals. What sort of goes into that decision making when you're setting up those shots?
Um, when I'm figuring out, like, do I want to use a slider and how I use the slider for a shot?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times, what a slider will help you do, like we used to see like zooms in the old days. Like the zoom, all it does is increase your shot size. You don't feel a sense of movement, right? Like if I'm moving like this, you feel me getting closer to the camera, right? And so when you do a move like that, and you're not just zooming in, everything changes. Your field of view changes, and not just the size of the shot changes. So it's a very, very different thing. So Steadicam has sort of revolutionized the way we move through space. The sliders have revolutionized the way we can fine tune a shot very, very delicately. If I'm on a dolly, right, and I'm at the end of my dolly track, or if I don't have room to get in any further, I can extend that move with a slider and move that over. One of the things that makes this really, really great is that this has a built-in flywheel on it, which is revolutionized the way we can smoothly use a slider. It has a built-in, I don't know if I can do this and hold it at the same time, but there's a little button on this that if I take the flywheel off and I undo the lock, this moves really, really quickly, right? It just moves by itself. I can just push it around, right? It's kind of like operating a fluid head without any friction on it. If I push this button in and I have the flywheel, it has inertia, right? It goes by itself, and it's like a dampening device for the slider. This is a great device too, right here, to be able to lock this off, because a lot of sliders don't have this locking feature, right? So if you want to say, well, let's leave the camera right here, I just lock that down and it doesn't move. If I was on a regular slider, I'd have to get some kind of crazy spring clamp thing or whatever, or just, if the camera moves, maybe have a lock off shot and there's a time lapse that's going on. I would never be able to do it on a traditional slider, but because this has that locking device on it, I can lock that off and I'm good to go. There is a time lapse feature adapter that goes with this. I don't have it yet. I know that they're as far as the availability goes, I think they're kind of unavailable right now, like a lot of things are, just for manufacturing purposes. But the other thing I wanted to point out really quickly with this is that these built-in legs are adjustable. So I can move this around to whatever position I want for leveling purposes, if I'm on level ground, or just to level the unit out itself. And so that's really a nice feature. So this thing is really, it's built really, really built well. It's got it's got the geared tracking here for when you do a time lapse. I don't know if I can see that really well in here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's actually a little geared tracking here for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
how we doing?
We're doing great. I do want to make mention, because we talked about it prior to coming on the air, and some people might not know this, and I don't want anyone to get nervous. If you do look on the website and you're searching for the Syrp Magic Carpet, it is being rebranded as Manfrotto. They're now, I guess you would call it absolved, not absolved. They're under one umbrella now. So
right.
So if you do order one of those and you get it with Manfrotto branding on it, You didn't get a wrong
Don't
product.
panic. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same great tool. Yeah.
Don't return it to the store. Keep it. It is the right product. It's just got under a new brand name. So you've got the same product, same quality, everything like that. So I do want to wrap things up here. I do want to give you an opportunity. I know you mentioned that you've got seminars that you do. I know you've got, social media and things like that. Where can people find you? How can they keep up with those things? Do you have a website?
Sure.
Where's Paolo at?
My website is just my full name. It's paolocascio.com. PaoloCascio.com. Instagram, Paolo Cascio Photo Video. I do have a Facebook page under the same name, Paolo Cascio Photo Video. And my workshop series, it's a masterclass. It started off as kind of a simple workshop about 5 years ago, and I'm developing a full-blown masterclass, a 2-day workshop. It's called Filmmaking for Photographers. And there's so many people out there that are seeing the trend moving more and more towards video, but they're getting horrible results because they just flip that little switch that goes to video and they hit the record button and they let the camera make all the decisions for them. And there's just so many different things to learn about filmmaking than traditional photography. And so I cover all those different things. I talk about camera settings, filtration, sound recording, screen direction, all the different things that we do in filmmaking that makes it work as filmmaking. The biggest challenge, of course, is people have tripod heads, right? To just lock off a simple head for still photography. And, we need to start learning how to use a fluid head and how to pan it and how to tilt, how to create moves and things like that. And so I don't have anything scheduled right at the moment. I just did one on the West Coast. It's a 6-hour class each day. And we cover a lot of great stuff. It's a lot of fun. The last one sold out in 3 days, which was very exciting to me. And I've taught that workshop at conferences in Chicago, like I think 3 years back to back. So looking forward to doing more of those. I would love to do more stuff with you guys, and maybe we could kind of take this to the next step and maybe like shoot a whole scene and just see how that would work. I don't know. Just kind of throwing some ideas out there. I think it's a lot of fun to show off new equipment and teach people what it does. But for me, I love this. I am very passionate about what I do for a living, and to be able to show people how to use these kind of tools, I think is a big thing. So I want to thank B&H again, the event space, for putting on these great webinars so people can not only see what this stuff looks like and not just scroll through the website and go like, what is this? Do I need it? Right. But to actually see something being practically used in a real location, a real space, I think can help people get their heads wrapped around, how would I use this as a product photographer? How would I use this as a documentary person? How would I use this if I was shooting, B-roll? Like what I just did, that product shot with the slider, you could do that with rings on a table. You could do it with a wedding cake. You could do that, just with just about anything. And so those are really, really a lot of fun. And I think Slider is just a fantastic tool. I strongly encourage people to try one out. You can rent them. I'm pretty sure you guys in your rental department, you have sliders. So try it out for a day and see how you like it. I think you'll fall in love with it. And I think this is a no-brainer. I mean, just go buy it. I don't know what else I could possibly tell you. I'm not here to sell it. I'm just showing you, like, I'm sold myself, and I just showed you why I'm sold on it. So picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Awesome. Well, Paolo, I want to thank you because like I mentioned previously when we first started the webinar, your passion reigns through. It's easy to see that you're passionate about what you do and what you talk about and how you teach it. So we really appreciate people like you coming to the event space and sharing your knowledge and, sharing with the customers as well, just that insight of how you can use it and different thoughts and processes and things like that, because overall, that's what makes the photo and video audio community a better place, is people who are willing to collaborate with each other and share. So, definitely, if you haven't yet, go give them a follow, a like, a share, anything that you could do to, follow along with Paolo. He's a great guy, and he really does have a lot of great information. Paolo's going to think this is like an infomercial for himself.
Oh my gosh, this is great. Are we recording this?
Yes, this is being recorded. You could show this to your wife
Where do I order
afterwards
it?
as proof.
Here's my credit card.
But we really do appreciate it. It really is what makes the event space such a special and wonderful place, is to be able to get together with people like yourself and be able to do that. And obviously a huge thanks to Manfrotto as well for sponsoring the event and for allowing us to collaborate with people like you and bringing you to us so that we can do those things. So thank you to them as well. And ultimately, the last thanks has to go out to our viewers who allow us to come in here and bring us great questions, enjoy what we're doing, give us great feedback. So we're super appreciative of that. Thank you to them as well, because without you guys, there is no us. So thanks to everybody overall. We appreciate it. But that's all the time we have for tonight. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks again, guys. Been my pleasure.